So my setup here is designed to be a DI amp recording system. So I'm using tube amplifiers, but I'm recording direct. The speaker cabinets here were an integral part of my setup a couple years ago. They don't get a lot of use anymore ever since I started recording direct, but really it focuses around these three amplifiers here. I like to create different tones through different blends and layering my sounds. Some guitar players want like a quintessential Marshall tone or a Fender tone, whereas me, I look to just create blends and create something maybe more original, more my own. And like I said, I'll blend in different channels, sometimes from the same amplifier. I'll blend two different amplifiers, and it just gives me a lot of different options. And then once you factor in pedals and other things like that, there's a lot of options here. And that's where I find a lot of fun in shaping tone. I don't get a lot of pleasure out of just choosing presets and modelers. While I don't have as many options as maybe some modeling systems would have, but I do have a lot of options here, and I get to create them. And that's part of the fun for me. I know it's not for everyone, but that's how I design this system. I want to have flexibility, and I want to be able to shape my sounds, and I have a lot of fun doing that. So anyway, so that's, we'll talk about the amps in a second, but let's go through the different components of the setup just to give you an idea how this all fits together. At the head of the chain is the Furman M8X2 power conditioner. This provides good surge protection for my gear, provides 8 outlets, and knocks out any unwanted electrical noise. Now stick around for this video. I'm actually going to show you how the amps sound and how they sound blended together, because really that is really the whole idea behind this setup, is that flexibility, being able to record different amp blends, different cabinets, things like that. And I'm going to show you some examples of how that sounds a little later in the video, so make sure to stick around. But let's start off with the Marshall. This is a JCM 950 watt dual reverb. I used to run this into these two 4x10 cabinets. I'll use them occasionally now, but really they're just a shell for these amplifiers. And once in a while I do like to plug in just to get that full effect. But I really don't record these cabs anymore. It's all done DI, and again, we'll talk about that in a second. But one thing to note about this Marshall, some people don't like the 900s because they find them a little bit harsh compared to an 800. And the reason that is there's this diode clipping stage. I guess that was the design of the amplifier, because this was marketed as a high gain amplifier. And I guess adding an additional distortion stage before the tubes. Some people love it, some people don't. One thing I noticed as I did start recording direct is I was hearing different things with my amplifier. And I think that's something, if you do get into DI recording, if you're used to recording with the cabinets, is you're going to develop a more intimate relationship with your amplifier. You're going to hear things that you never heard before. And I struggled with that for a while. I actually, changed some tubes and things like that. And then, like I said, I have done the modification, but I've been really super happy since I did that. At least for my taste, I get that natural tube saturation distortion, which is what I want. And if I want to push this any harder, well, I can throw a pedal in the front, and that solves that problem, so I'm not stuck with that clip diode stage. So definitely made a big difference with this amp, and I'm super happy. Anyways, it also has a clean channel. Sometimes pushing a boost or an overdrive into the clean channel just gets you that classic breakup sound that a Marshall can deliver. So I have a good range of tones, from good high gain. I wouldn't call it super modern high gain, of course, but good high gain tones and nice sort of distorted clean tones that they can get out of the Marshall. And of course, boosting it gets me some really, really nice tones. Hey, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. If you'd like to jump into some deeper conversations with me, some of my friends, even some other YouTubers, I've got the Lonely Rockers Club on Facebook. It's a great group where we talk about all sorts of things: music, production, guitars, amps, you name it. It happens in that group. Would love to see you there. Link is in the description. All right, next on the list here, and this is not in any particular order, is the Hughes Kettner Grandmeister Deluxe 40. Now, by the way, I've covered a lot of these things as standalone videos. I'm going to create a playlist. I'm going to put it in the description. So anything that I've talked about at length, if there's a video about it, I'll put it in that playlist. If you're just getting to know me as a guitar player, there's a lot of guitar and amp content on this channel. So make sure to sift through that playlist. We've got all kinds of stuff. And especially this Hughes Kettner, did a whole video and recording with this amp. But this is probably the most versatile amplifier that I've ever used. It's a 4-channel amplifier, and there's a boost for each channel. It's highly programmable with built-in effects. Now, I don't use the effects really that much unless I'm just jamming in the room. I certainly don't record with them on, but it's fully programmable, so you can set all the parameters of your tone, and I'm talking the analog parameters because this is a tube amp, and but the controls are digital, so it can save all the settings of your EQs and things like that and save them as presets. The only thing that's not programmable is the master volume. But just from the fact that it is 4 channels from clean, you got crunch, lead, and ultra, individual boosts. It's a very, very versatile amp. In fact, I probably use this amp the most. Just when I'm the quick and dirty stuff, I just want to get some things done because I can get the full range of tones just with this one amplifier. The third amp here, and certainly not last, is the Revv G20. Now this is of the 2 Lunchbox amps that Revv has. They have the D20, which is more of their pedal platform amplifier. The G20 is their high gain Lunchbox amp. But the reason I was really interested in this amplifier was it has a crystal clean channel. So as opposed to the clean channel in the Marshall, which will give you some natural breakup, and the Hughes Kettner as well, is that I found that the clean channel on the G20 was super clean. So if I want that really chimey, clean, or I want to push the amp a little bit, but I don't want to get it to get too distorted, I can achieve that with this G20. Now it's a 2-channel amp. The high gain channel has a bunch of aggression modes here and the wide switch, so there's a lot of variety of high gain tones that you can get from here. Not really marketed as a pedal platform, like let's say their D20 was, and what I would achieve with the Marshall, but really great high gain tones, absolutely, but a great clean channel and a high gain amplifier. So often I'll use this amp for those nice chimey clean tones that I often will blend in with a heavier tone. But again, a very versatile amp, and it has a built-in 2 notes torpedo captor. So for DI recording, it's got the captor built in, and again, making this a highly versatile amplifier and great in the studio. Now, talking about DI, that's a big part of my setup. My recording process was turned upside down the day I discovered the 2 notes Torpedo Captor 8. Suddenly, volume wasn't an issue, as it is for most of us recording at home, and it opened me up to the endless supply of cab IRs. Today I mainly use the Torpedo Captor X. The Grandmeister does have its own built-in DI with analog speaker sim, but I take the speaker out and run it through the Captor X, which can store up to 6 cab IRs accessible from the selector switch on the front panel. I keep the 6 slot empty for times I want to record the raw amp tone if my plan is to add the cab IR and mix. I also run the Marshall through the Captor X. The output from the Captor X runs directly into my audio interface. I have speaker cables plugged into each amp and just swap them as I need. The Revv has its own built-in torpedo, so cabs are accessed directly from the amp and the output is fed directly into the audio interface. In both cases, I go line level into the interface. So the other thing about this is that the Torpedo Captor has a desktop software called Torpedo Remote, and that lets you manage the cabinets that are stored on the device, but also lets you customize your cabinets. You can create different cabinet blends, you can change microphone positions, you can add some room ambience, and you can save that as an IR in essence, and then you can load that onto In this case, the amplifier with the captor inside the amplifier, or on the Captor X, and as I said, one of those 6 slots that it has available. But what I've done here, because I have 2 torpedoes here, they're both connected to the computer at the same time, is that I've added this little switch box here, a little AB switch. So I don't have to disconnect any cables. If I'm working with the Revv and I want to switch over to the captor, I just hit the button on the switcher. It just connects to the other device. The software recognizes that right away, that a different device is connected, and right away it's now talking to the Captor X or the G20. And this way, again, I'm not fumbling with cables. Now, one thing I haven't talked about is a pedal board. And the reason is that I don't have a pedal board anymore. I used to have a really, really big pedal board, and I decided to blow it up. Not literally, but it was getting in my way. It used to sit right here and I'd trip over it. But the main reason I decided to take it apart is that I never used it as a pedal board. Because I record here, I'm not playing live gigs. I just didn't need a pedal board anymore. It was a hard decision because I really was proud of it, and I had built it from scratch, but I found that I always needed individual components of that board. So I decided to take it apart. The power brick, which powered the pedal board, is sitting right here. So anytime I need a pedal, I just bring it over to the rig here. Often I'll have an overdrive, actually the Revv Tilt Overdrive. Recently took over the job from my OCD. This is a great overdrive pedal with a built-in tilt EQ. Again, I've got a whole video on this one. Whether it's an EQ pedal or, like I said, boost or things like that. I have a bag with all different cables, and I can bring the patch cables and the power cables. I just plug it into the power brick right here, use it as I need it. But my pedals are stored over here. And by over here, I mean this pedal display here. So this is remnants of my pedal board. I decided to dismantle it because really I didn't use my board as a board. I would use individual pedals as a required, often pulling them off the board, and it just became a nuisance. So I decided to pull it apart and create this little display shelf here. It looks cool in the studio, but I have easy access to different pedals. So if I want to experiment with different sounds, I can just come over here, pull it off the shelf. And when I'm done, I can bring it back here. So if I want to boost, I've got my 2B booster here, the OCD. As I mentioned, I'm using the Tilt Overdrive from Revv a little more often these days. Got an Invader Distortion, Joe Bonamassa wah pedal, my favorite wah pedal. Occasionally we'll bring that out. I've got the Revv G8 gate pedal here, full tone super trem, big buff, fuzz distortion. And to be honest, I'm not even using half of what's on here. Mainly it's a boost and mainly an overdrive. And I do have the IK Multimedia X-Bass Reverb, which I can create presets on the pedal, experiment with it, and then I can send that preset into the plugin so I can record without reverb. Again, there's a whole video about that as well. I'll make sure to put that in the playlist. But really just a good way to keep all my pedals organized. And I have everything I need at my disposal here. And when I'm done, it goes right back on the shelf. In an effort to give you an idea of what this rig actually sounds like, I've prepared a tone where I've recorded all 3 amplifiers. I've got heavy tones, I've got overdriven tones, and even clean tones, all working together to shape one big tone. Now, I've done a whole video where I talk about some of my tone stacking techniques, so I will include that in the playlist. But let's check out one example of how this rig sounds. So I'm curious about your thoughts on that tone. Is it reminiscent of anything you've ever heard before? Do you have any general thoughts about it? Would love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments. Well, there's my little tour of my guitar recording rig here in my home studio. I certainly hope you enjoyed that. If you've got any questions, any thoughts, maybe you want to share some of the gear that you're thinking about or you already have, that's what the comment section is for. If you did enjoy this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. If you want to do a deeper dive with me, I'm on Patreon. I have affiliate links, I've got merch, a lot of different ways to support this channel. It's all listed in the description below, and I really appreciate that. But the most important thing is to check out another video. I've got one waiting for you right here. And remember, you don't need a band to rock and roll. I look forward to seeing you again in another video.